What's up, guys? It's Benny. It was the F aroundest of times and the fine outingest of times, and Donald Trump just made James Comey find out. Speaking of tweets that age immaculately like a fine French wine, Donald Trump, dirty cop James Comey got caught, telling us in April of 2020 that he's caught James Comey, and now today, James Comey has been indicted for exactly what President Trump was posting about here, which would be lying to Congress. Donald Trump posting that while James Comey was actively lying to Congress. No one is above the law. James Comey has been indicted on 2 counts of false statements and obstruction of justice, lying to Congress. Donald Trump posting about it here on Truth Social, posting the comments from Kash Patel. Let's go ahead and look at some of these immaculate tweets that Donald Trump has posted. That I was right about James Comey, crooked cop, says Donald Trump from 2019. Deputy Director Dan Bongino, when Kash Patel and I took our leadership positions in the FBI, we promised the American people accountability. Promises matter, says Dan Bongino seconds ago. Pam Bondi saying no one is above the law. Today's indictment reflects the Department of Justice's commitment to holding those accountable in positions for misleading the American people. We'll follow the facts of the case. Disgraced FBI Director James Comey has officially been indicted. Perp walk him on national TV. Kash Patel's statement here, your FBI took another step in his promise for full accountability. Far too long, previous corrupt leadership and their enablers of weaponized federal law enforcement, damaging a once proud institution and severely eroding public trust. Every day we continue to fight to earn that trust back. Under my leadership, the FBI will confront these problems head on. Nowhere has this politicization of law enforcement been more blatant than during the Russiagate hoax, which James Comey was lying and leaking about, a disgraceful chapter in history as we continue to investigate our expose. Everyone, especially those in positions of powers, will be held accountable, no matter the perch. No one is above the law, says Kash Patel. Trump says Comey is a bad person. He's a sick person. He did terrible things at the FBI. He is officially indicted. Disgraced former FBI Director James Comey has been indicted on 2 of 3 counts pursued by prosecutors making false statements and obstruction of justice shortly after President Trump publicly urged his Justice Department to act now. Crossfire hurricane. We'll see if all the libs who tweeted nobody is above the law, if they still believe that. Still believe that? Lawyer up, justice is coming, nobody is above the law, says Mike Davis. Confirmed obstruction of justice and perjury charges for lying to Congress. Ladies and gentlemen, no one is above the law. That's amazing. I can't wait to use that over and over and over again. Well done, boys. James Comey indicted, perjury and obstruction, lying to the Senate. James Comey telling Congress in September 2020 that the Steele dossier wasn't used in the 2016 intelligence community assessment of the Russia hoax. Tulsi Gabbard released from July showing the Steele dossier was used, and James Comey lied. James Comey has lied to Congress so many times, and James Comey is now officially indicted. Baby, this is going to be a wild one. Here is the breaking news coverage on Fox.
Welcome back. Breaking right now. Tonight, a major update to a story we brought to you earlier in the hour. A grand jury has just handed down an indictment for former FBI Director James Comey. The Justice Department accuses Comey of lying to Congress while under oath back in 2020. Let's bring in David Spunt with all the breaking details. David, what can you tell us?
Well, Jillian, we are waiting to get the actual details of the indictment. We're just told that an indictment has been handed up against the former FBI Director, James Comey. So I don't want to speculate on the actual charges yet until I see the paper in hand. That's the only responsible thing to do. But we know that James Comey, the former FBI Director, has been indicted. We're waiting to see if there's any sort of comment from the Justice Department. As of now, there is no comment from the Justice Department. But we have been reporting all week that a grand jury has been impaneled in the Eastern District of Virginia, specifically in Alexandria, Virginia, looking at 2020 testimony. James Comey testified before Congress remotely from his home in Virginia because this was during the throes of COVID. Before the Senate Judiciary Committee, and apparently there were parts of that testimony where federal prosecutors believe that he lied. We also know today that U.S. Attorney Lindsay Halligan, the newly installed U.S. Attorney, who's been on the job since Monday, imagine what a first week that is, Jillian, took this before the grand jury in Alexandria, Virginia, and successfully returned an indictment. So I'm going to wait until we have more on the indictment. We're looking at the paper. We'll come back. We'll we'll bring it back to you. But we can confirm that an indictment has been handed up against former FBI Director James Comey. No comment immediately from his attorney at this time.
And here is Fox News legal expert Jonathan Turley with an update.
A lot of people anticipated this coming in light of everything that the president has said and indicated lately, as well as the DOJ. We don't know the charges yet, but we know that there is an indictment. What do you make of it?
Well, this has been an extraordinary few days. The president issued a social media posting in which he seemed to pressure indictments against individuals, including Comey. That was then withdrawn. We also heard reports that prosecutors opposed going to the grand jury, that they didn't feel that there was a case to be made here. And now, of course, we have what appears to be an indictment. It is a seismic event. I mean, you're talking about a former director of the FBI. And there have been long allegations that Comey was a leaker. If you recall, the Inspector General's report was scathing with regard to Comey's conduct. Comey removed FBI documents, including classified information, when he was fired. And the Inspector General went after him, but it did not find that he specifically leaked that to the New York Times. But this could be a perjury case as opposed to a leak case.
And ladies and gentlemen, since we, didn't need an expert because we had one on this morning, might as well just throw to Mike Davis's commentary on James Comey, who predicted, once again, Mike Davis with a crystal ball predicting this was going to happen to James Comey, and talking about how James Comey needs to get measured for a 6'9" jumpsuit, orange jumpsuit, because he's going to jail. By the way, the penalties for this are 5 years potentially each. So James Comey, if found guilty on these counts, could face 10 years in prison. A lot of seashells and Taylor Swift in prison. Yeah, here's Mike Davis.
What about another seemingly mythical character, James Comey, at least in his own mind, who is very above the law, who is himself the law, and we've learned through multiple corroborated breaking news reports that James Comey will be potentially suffering from lying to Congress and breaking the law himself. What do you say, Mike?
Yeah, I think it was October 1st, 2020. So just under 5 years ago, which is important, as we'll discuss. James Comey went before the Senate Judiciary Committee, and he was asked questions under oath by Senator Ted Cruz about Crossfire Hurricane, the Russian collusion hoax, and Comey's lies to Congress, where Comey said that he did not have discussions with the media. Well, his deputy, Andrew McCabe, said he did. So there's clear evidence that that Comey lied to the Senate Judiciary Committee under oath just under 5 years ago, which is perjury. It's also obstruction of a congressional investigation. It could also be conspiracy. And so James Comey, who pretends like he's this Boy Scout who wants to go after, he's this fake Republican Boy Scout who wants to team up with Obama and Biden and Hillary and Clapper and so many others and run the Jack Smith, Jay Bratton, run the Crossfire Hurricane bogus investigation and the cover-up to go after President Trump, to take him out and to help Hillary Clinton's campaign to cover up her corruption. It looks like James Comey is going to have his own perjury problems. Now, here's the issue. There's a 5-year statute of limitation on perjury and obstruction of a congressional investigation. So Lindsay in the Eastern District of Virginia, and I think James Comey testified from the Eastern District of Virginia. I think he testified via Zoom because this was during COVID and it wasn't in D.C., thankfully, because the D.C. grand jurors won't even, indict carjackers. But so the Eastern District of Virginia has a few more sane grand jurors out there. And I hope Lindsay, the new U.S. attorney, moves forward and indicts James Comey for perjury and obstruction of a congressional investigation. And I think she has to do it by September 30th. So we're getting close. I will say this, that for conspiracy, the statute of limitations does not start until the conspiracy ends. So when you are covering up a conspiracy, you're continuing the conspiracy. So even if somehow they can't charge him with perjury or obstruction by September 30th. I have a different idea, or maybe an additional idea, that James Comey could be part of the conspiracy grand jury, maybe down in the Southern District of Florida, where they did the Mar-a-Lago raid. My new buddy, Jason Redding Quinones, is the U.S. attorney down there. I think he'd be a great guy to do this. He's a great patriot, calls balls and strikes. So James Comey is he's going to face justice one way or the other, whether it's with Lindsay in the Eastern District of Florida or Eastern District of Virginia, or Jason down in the Southern District of Florida. This guy is a snake. And this is what's so important about this, Ben. Remember what they did. They politicized and weaponized intel agencies and law enforcement to try to take out a presidential candidate, to help another presidential candidate, and to cover up her corruption. And when that failed in 2016, they continued to go after the duly elected president of the United States and sabotage him. And then when he left office and took these Crossfire Hurricane records with him that he declassified, they ran unprecedented republic-ending lawfare against the former president of the United States, including the Mar-a-Lago raid. They tried to bankrupt him for non-fraud, as we talked about with Big Tish. They tried to throw him in prison 4 times for non-crimes. They tried to take him off the ballot unconstitutionally. They tried to take off his head twice when they underfunded the Secret Service protection. And Biden said to pull the bullseye on him after calling him the gravest threat to democracy. I have made this my mission over the last 3 years, and it will be my mission for the next 4 years. These lawfare Democrats are going to face justice. And I am doing everything in my power, very publicly, on your show for the last 3 years, telling everyone exactly what I'm going to do, and I'm going to do it. I'm not trolling anyone. I'm going to put these I'm going to help put these lawfare Democrats in prison for their real crimes.
What would be your message to James Comey right now, presently? Because we're seeing the leaks. I'm not exactly sure where they're coming from, but I love if they are coming from the DOJ. I love that it's MSNBC that's getting them, because they constantly platform James Comey.